Thank you, Mr Speaker. I ask leave of the House to move amendments 1 to 8 as circulated in my name together.
Leave is granted. The member for North Sydney has the call.
Thank you. I move amendments 1 to 8 as circulated in my name together. Mr Speaker, the amendments I am moving today to the Economic Inclusion Advisory Committee bill do 5 things to strengthen the bill and ensure the government receives and listens to the best possible advice on ways to lift economic inclusion and reduce disadvantage. I want to thank the Australian Council of Social Services, not only for the work and advocacy they do every day for all Australians, most importantly our most vulnerable, but also specifically for their help in identifying the ideas I am about to present. I'd also like to thank Senator Pocock for his work in advocating for this committee, the member Andrew Wilkie for the work he has done here today already, and to congratulate the Minister, Minister Rishworth, for making this legislation a reality. The establishment of this committee and the work it may be tasked with doing has the potential to significantly impact Australia's social policy framework in a positive way which transcends any one government. But this will only happen if it is set up to function effectively, with the right processes in place to ensure its advice is heeded. In this context, then, the first amendment I am moving will require the committee to report under defined national poverty reduction targets. If the purpose of this committee is to help our government and this parliament shift the dial, then we must know not just what we are currently dealing with, but where we are trying to get to. Improving policy to eradicate poverty for all people in this country should be a central part of the committee's remit, as we are already seeing growing inequality undermines social cohesion and is detrimental to economic growth. It is pivotal, therefore, that the very committee tasked with providing independent advice to the government on economic inclusion and how to tackle disadvantage put poverty reduction front and centre. My amendments task the committee with setting out the process and timeline for the development of national poverty targets and measures and reporting on the progress made to achieve those targets. Secondly, these amendments require the committee's report to be released to the public at least 2 weeks before the budget. As we know, the Interim Economic Inclusion Advisory Committee was established earlier this year pending this legislation being passed. Yet its primary recommendation that, and I quote, "the government as a first priority commit to a substantial increase in the base rates of the job seeker payment and related working age payments" was not implemented in the most recent federal budget. Similarly, the Interim Committee's call for the scrapping of the activity test for childcare subsidies went unheeded. This shows us there is a real risk the Economic Inclusion Advisory Committee's recommendation will be ignored by the government, and it is imperative the committee's report be made public at least 2 weeks before the budget to give the public, individuals, peak bodies, NGOs and social services time to consider the committee's recommendations and then monitor which are taken up come budget day. Thirdly, these amendments require the committee be comprised of people with lived experience of poverty. While efforts have been made to ensure a diverse range of experts sit on the committee, the perspective of a peak employer, business association and academic are not the same as those of people with real, lived experience of poverty and economic disadvantage. Only a woman actually living in a car knows exactly why she is there and why there is no other option, just as only a young person trying to survive in a city while seeking work knows what it's like to struggle, or an older Australian trying to balance their pension across competing priorities knows what it's like to go without. To ensure people from all walks of life and all socioeconomic backgrounds can become committee members, these amendments provide committee members to be remunerated. Making committee membership a paid position reduces the risk of people not being able to afford to participate or having limited capacity to participate due to a lack of resources. And finally, these amendments ensure there is a gender equality and Indigenous representation by requiring the committee be comprised of 50% women and requiring sufficient Indigenous representation on the committee as determined through consultation with Indigenous representative bodies. Mr Speaker, my community of North Sydney and I strongly believe everyone deserves respect and a fair go, no matter their background. We can have healthy, productive, thriving and inclusive societies, but to achieve this we must address the root cause of disadvantage, look for ways to ensure economic and social inclusion for all, and provide adequate social security safety nets. That's why I welcome the establishment of a committee to provide advice to the government ahead of every federal budget on ways to boost economic inclusion and tackle disadvantage. It is an excellent opportunity to improve policy making and improve outcomes for the Australians with the least, but to achieve this, the committee must be diverse, independent, transparent, empowered and respected. If my amendments are not taken up today in this place, I call on the Minister, through you, Mr Speaker, to remain open to ways to further improve this legislation and develop it in ways that enables tangible, measurable outcomes.
Has concluded.